Welcome to the final episode of Brain Academy. On this episode, we're going to be dealing with creating a build and finally archiving our project. Without further ado, let's get started. So here we are back in the project, and the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure we have all our scenes ready. So by going down here, we check our scenes, we have our levels, and we also have a main menu scene, an end scene, and the main menu scene right there. And we're going to go over to our build settings, and as you can see, I've already added basically all of them. I'm just going to go ahead and delete them all, because we're going to walk through this together. So I'm just going to right-click and remove selection. So now we got to re-add them. So the first thing we're going to add is our main menu scene, so we're going to go to it. Now that we're in the scene, we're going to go back up to Build Settings. And we're going to hit Add Open Scenes. Now this is now added to the scenes that are going to be built. And we're going to do the same thing with Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3. And now there's one more scene we need to add, and that scene is our endgame scene. We'll find that in Menus, Endgame Scene, Add Open Scenes. Now, it's very important to note that you have to have them all in the right order. Main menu scene has to be at the top. If it's at the bottom, the first scene that's going to be loaded is Level 1. And just to keep things organized, I'm going to keep it in chronological order in the order in which they appear. So Level 1, 2, 3, and End Scene. So let's close that up. Now let's deal with some of the build settings, things that are going to appear once we hop on our desktop and try to play the game. So we're going to go to Edit and go down to Project Settings. And in Project Settings, we have all of these options. Today we're just going to deal with Player. So the first thing at the top, this will affect mainly the metadata of your build. You're going to give your company a name. We are Brain Academy. And our product name is The Misadventures of Eggbot. And then the next thing is version number. Version number is very important to incrementally increase. You can go 1.2, 1.3, however you want to do it. Just make sure that it's different every time. Okay, and here we can add some logos to our game. These are the icons that are going to appear on the desktop when we click on them. You can also add them by going into Scene Assets and finding the texture and dragging it in. Default cursor is going to be sort of like what your cursor looks like in-game. Because we don't rely on it too much and we don't really have an asset I like for it, we're just going to keep that blank. Icons, we've uploaded our icon. You can see the different sizes it's going to appear as. I'm not going to play around with that, just going to keep it as is. And then resolution and presentation. These are the resolution settings. You can lock them. I'm just going to keep them default. And now the splash screen. Now the splash screen is what appears when you first boot up the game. Right now it just says Made with Unity. That's because of the license we're using. You can remove that, but only if you have a pro license. For now, we're just going to keep that as is, and we're going to add our own logo to that splash screen. So when the game boots up, it's going to say Brain Academy on it. So you just add it down here under logos, and when you hit preview, you can see it appears. We're also going to play around a bit, so you can play around with the background color or how long it lasts. If I set it to like 7.32 seconds, see it just drags on and on and on. We don't really like that, so what I'm going to do is set it back to maybe 2 seconds. And I think that's good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color here. You can change it to whatever color you want. I think I like black, so I'm just going to set it to a pure black. You can also have a background image instead of a color. That doesn't tend to work out very well, in my opinion, but if you want to have that option, it is there. So I think that's about it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go in and build the project. So what you have to do is you have to go back up to Build Settings. And here, see, we have already added all of our scenes. Just make sure they're in the right order. Make sure you have your target platform set to whatever platform you're using, and then hit Build. Now from here, it's going to default to your project folder that you probably have on your desktop. I'm just going to put our build in the downloads folder here. I'm going to add a folder and call it The Adventures of Eggbot. And then I'm going to click on it and I'm going to select that folder. So our build is going to appear in the folder that we have now selected. And now it's going to take a little while to build. Typically in the morning, what you're going to do is you're going to make a build of your project, go get your coffee, and then come back and actually test your build. And that's primarily because this can take anywhere from like 5 minutes to several hours, depending on how many shaders you have in your project, how many materials, just how much data it's going to be pulling. So generally, my recommendation is start your build process, go off and do something else, maybe keep an eye on it in case there's an error, and then you'll probably be good to go. So you're not sitting here waiting with me, I'm going to just fast forward a bit to the very end of this. And we're back. So it is now built and it is now in our downloads folder. And I open it up and you can see it started. So let's go through credits. Ooh, that doesn't look too good. And that's why we build. We build our project just to make sure everything's functioning on the player's end. Hit quit. All right, it quit the game. Good. Let's just boot it up again. And let's try the start button. And the game has started. So now you know how to basically build your project and send it to friends. All you have to do is send the entire folder. Make sure you send everything within the Adventures of Eggbot, not just the executable file, the .exe. If you send just the executable, it's not going to work. It needs the data folder, and some of the other folders it creates alongside prevent certain problems from occurring. So make sure you send the entire The Adventures of Eggbot folder. So to end off this tutorial series, I just want to do a quick little footnote about archiving. Not just archiving builds, but archiving your entire project. The purpose of archiving is to prevent you from screwing yourself over. Generally, when you are so far into a project, that's when it is most likely to fail. So, archive often. You can archive in many different kinds of ways. Some of the easiest and most common is to just save your project to a drive somewhere, call it version 1.1, and then save a later version, call it version 1.2, and then have a text document beside it just saying what the general changes are in between. More intelligent ways would be using a GitHub account to save a repository that can constantly be updated and you can revert to previous versions. There are a little bit more powerful tools like Tortoise SVN that kind of does most of the work for you. I recommend learning these tools, getting used to them, because if you want to get into the industry, this is industry standard. Generally, what it's going to allow you to do is when a problem arises, you can revert to a previous version, see what the changes between your version and the newest version are, and then decipher what the problem was, what the bug was, because it is most likely going to appear in the many different changes that have been made since then and now. That being said, I hope you take that little piece of advice to heart. We have some links in the description to go over the very specifics of how to set things like that up. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial series. We've worked very hard on it, and we are very excited to see what you do with this. So, as always, thank you for watching, and stay frosty.